to order at 6:30. Today is Thursday, May 22nd, 2025, and this is the general meeting of the Board of Intermediate District 287. And before we move on to our agenda, I will ask Board Member Brian Roth from West Tonka to read the mission and then start our board member introductions.
Sure, happy to. Thanks, Ann. The mission of Intermediate 287 is to be the premier provider of innovative specialized services to ensure that each member district can meet the unique learning needs of its students. And I'm happy to be here from West Tonka.
Go this way. Good evening, I'm Michael Birdman. I represent Edina Public Schools.
Keith Day from Osceola Area Schools.
Mike Remical from Minnetonka Public Schools.
Caroline Long from Robbinsdale Public Schools.
Rich Seck, Brooklyn Center.
Crystal Brackey from Richfield Public Schools.
Dan Genestra, Wayzata Public Schools.
Ann Casey, proudly representing St. Louis Park.
Hi, everyone. Shannon Andreessen representing Hopkins Public Schools.
Kim Ross, representing Eden Prairie Public Schools.
And I'm Karen Orcutt from Orono Schools.
Thank you, everyone, and welcome to everyone who's here tonight. We've got a nice full house. All right. First up is that we approve our meeting agenda. So is there a motion to approve the general meeting agenda as presented?
So moved.
Moved by Shannon. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Kim. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The chair votes aye and the agenda is approved. Next up, we have audience opportunity to speak. I don't believe we've had anyone sign up tonight. Thank you. Okay, our consent agenda, which contains routine business items. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented?
So moved.
Moved by Michael. Second by Mike. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Chair votes aye, and the consent agenda is also approved. Okay, our most exciting part, our shared success and recognition from Ann Bremmer Education Center. We have Principal Amanda Cook, right? I think is going to introduce our recipient of the May 2025 Above and Beyond.
Yes, thank you. Good evening, Superintendent Dowd and school board members. It's nice to see you all again. My name's Amanda Cook. I'm the principal at Ann Bremmer Education Center. And I'm really excited to be here this evening to introduce our Above and Beyond award winner for the evening. Leah Olson, please stand, Leah, so we can see. Leah Olson is here this evening. She is our DAPE teacher. Oh, sorry. Our DAPE teacher. And for those of you unfamiliar with DAPE, DAPE is a developmental adaptive Phy-Ed. So it's an adaptive Phy-Ed opportunity. Many of our students participate in DAPE, and Leah provides those services for our students. And so when you think about adaptive Phy-Ed, you think about creativity, right? Somebody that can really think outside of the box and really adapt Phy-Ed to our students and their needs. Leah does that. She doesn't only do that. It's not just a creativity, it's innovative, right? It's beyond just coming up with some ideas. She goes above and beyond. And most recently, she has an example of her mini golf lesson that she had in the multi-purpose room where she often works with our students. As you can see here, she developed this really amazing course for our students. And many of our students don't have the same opportunities as other students to participate in mini golf. And more recently, our group at Ann Bremmer actually got to take an outing yesterday to an actual mini golf course and participate in it. And really a lot of the success was in part due to Leah's work in preparing them for that. And so it's really a pleasure to be here with her this evening. I want to share just a little story about the photo that you see up here. And I always love to give Leah a little bit of a hard time. She and I have a good time together at work. And when she was preparing for this mini golf course, it was some morning. I'm not sure what morning it was. Bright and early, I got a walkie call, I think. And Leah walkies me. And usually when people walkie me that early, it's pretty significant. It's kind of an important thing. And she walkies me in a very stern Leah voice and essentially calls me down to her principal's office. and says, will you come and see me down in the office? And so I walked down to the multi-purpose room. In a very serious way, she asked me, can I get a rock? Do you remember this?
Yes.
She asked if she could have a rock. And if you know our site, we don't try to have rocks on our campus. And so it was unusual for her to ask for a rock. And I said, where are you going to find a rock? And she said, she points out the window and she says, back there behind the fence. And I thought, okay. And I don't know if I asked you, Leah, or if you could just read my face, but clearly I had a confused look on my face. And she said, beyond the fence. And I'm like, okay, well, we'll get you a key to get you a rock. What do you want to do with this? And she said, I want to build a mini golf course for our students. And so if you take a closer look, and it's also on social media, you can take a closer look, you'll find rocks lined up in there. And it was a way of bringing nature and items into the course. So I just want to read one statement that was shared with me here. I'd like to share it with you, and it really sums up Leah and all the work she does for our students. They said, Leah truly deserves the above and beyond nomination. She has a passion and immense creativity for adapting materials so that all of our students are able to access physical education activities. From adapting ping pong paddles for students with limited vision to using PVC pipes to create an adaptive golf clubs to use by students with limited mobility, she ensures our students have access to the same activities as their general education peers. She makes date fun and exciting for many of our students by hosting carnivals, glow-in-the-stick rollerblading, weekly YMCA visits, dancing around the world, and creating her very own mini golf course right in our gym. Her time, effort, and dedication to serving our students is truly remarkable. She provides experiences for our high school students and transition age students that they will be able to carry into the lifelong recreation and leisure skills. Leah ensures she includes student voice by assessing their students' interests, areas regarding their verbal ability. She is dedicated to working with families to ensure they have knowledge of and access to community resources so that students can continue their physical activity journeys outside of a school day and further into adulthood within their own communities. Leah uses her experience, creativity, and knowledge to further the DAPE world by presenting at conferences and sharing her activities and adaptations on social media. Her creativity and dedication also flows into additional responsibilities within her role through her support of the staff wellness and PBIS committees. We are gifted to be able to have Leah work with our students and be inspiring by creating creative experiences that provide meaningful belonging and excitement. So thank you, Leah, for all that you do.
Leah, do you want to come up and say anything?
I can.
You don't have to, but you certainly.
You guys give me the microphone. I want to say, thank you, everybody here for inviting me, but also, hearing the words that my colleagues had to say, was more than anything. And the amount of people that came up and just, said, hey, I said this, or hey, I said that, means a lot, because I feel like it kind of is in passing a lot. And, we all have busy days, but, Amanda has been amazing. I come to her and ask for a leaf blower, and now I have a leaf blower. But it really is being creative, and I think I do have the best job in the entire world. So I love working here, and as long as you guys keep letting me push the limits, I'll continue to do it. Thank you.
Thank you. Board member, something to add? That was you said it all. Thank you. And you're welcome to stay, but you definitely don't have to. All right, next up, we have our superintendent's report with 3 items. The first item is the Minnesota Association of Alternative Programs MAP conference that some of our students attended. And Dr. Tanya Allen and Kara Zachary are going to provide an update.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi. Our update really includes multiple people that are here, so awesome too. Madam Chair, Superintendent Dowd and the board members, thank you for this opportunity. I want to invite Brent Dysart up, who is our Equity and Inclusion Coordinator. And then we also have our student, Crystal, and her mother, Johnny White, not mispronounced, that are also a part of this presentation. So you're going to get a perspective from more than just us.
Yes.
How's that?
Perfect. Great.
And we have not been together. So excuse us if we're a little different. today.
Yes.
There we go. So just to give you an understanding, a little bit of an overview of what MAP Stars is about. You're going to learn more about the coaching and advising and what equity and inclusion has contributed to all of this work happening, student and parent feedback on the trip, and then some next steps. So just to give you an overview, if you've never heard of MAP Stars, MAP stands for the Minnesota Association of Alternative Programs, and it was actually created back in 1993. And the purpose of it is really a focus on not forgetting that students that are in alternative school programs often lose the opportunities that their peers that are in traditional programs receive. And so part of what they wanted to do was to really make sure that we can focus on how these students also make a difference. And so STAR stands for Success, Teamwork, Achievement, Recognition, and Self-Esteem. And it's really focused on a fall leadership conference, a spring competition of sorts, and then also several other events. They've been trying to do more regional events of late. I do want to give a shout out to the chaperones. So you see Brent, Sarah, Miss P, as they call her at Career Tech Center, and then Caitlin Hoffman, who is a counselor over at North Education Center, also came on this trip. So I'm going to turn it over to Kara or Brent.
Or Brent. I'll just this isn't on the slide, but I'll say Tanya came to me about a year ago and asked if I had heard of MAP, and I hadn't heard of MAP. And so I started researching, and I think this was a great opportunity for our students. And we really needed someone to get it off the ground and to get our students involved. So Bright Futures, the conference that we hold annually, came out of it, out of this conversation about MAP, because the MAP conference, the first year I was here, was planned on a professional development day, so there were no students there. So we planned Bright Futures so our students would still have a similar opportunity. And this year, our students were able to engage with and attend the MAP conference, really due to our Closing Educational Opportunities Grant funding. So last year I applied for a grant, and then we were able to use those funds to help our students get there, including transportation, paying our staff to be there overnight, food and entrance fees, and also all of the coaching, right, that Brent was able to do for them, and coaching so they could compete in any of these areas. So I'll give it over to Brent now so we can talk about all of the different areas in which they're able to compete and how he supported our students and preparation.
Hello, I'm Brent Dysart. Thank you for having me. I want to start this really with just a really quick story. So reflection from Miss P, who's not here tonight. Circled back after the trip and asked her one simple question. Would it be beneficial, should we do this again, to lead with how much this filled our buckets at the end of the year for making this trip? And she looked at me and said, absolutely yes. And so I think that's a sign of exactly the impact that it had on us. And I'm going to let family and students tell you the impact that it had on them. But for us, it was really interesting. It was tumultuous at the beginning and starting. But what I'll do, next slide, if you look at how we've kind of, right here to the next one. There we go. So we started this with, and I didn't include them because I didn't want student names, but we started with student names all the way to the left. And then we started building as we knew their categories, and then we built even a little bit more. The thing I love about the tournament is our net tournament conference is that students compete in life skills, which was a really cool game show kind of environment, right? And students didn't know that they were going to be much like this up on a stage when they were doing it. I didn't, as their coach, know that, but students did very well in that environment, right? And so life skills would ask you about things that are finance related, environment related, different things like that. They had buzzers to buzz in and out, and they would go around in teams. So it was really quite amazing. And so as we figured out what students were doing to their primary category, we'd have that listed and then coach with them specifically on that. And then we had the team events for students so that we would hopefully keep all of our schedule for that entire day filled for students. We did a pretty good job with that. If you notice on the sheet here, I just want you to pay close attention to the 5 and the 4s that are up there. Those students did very well, right? And so we've learned this recipe. Should we do this again of exactly what it takes? First one of what it took, the most successful team had an AP that showed up for 2 or 3 hours down in Mankato. So it took the time of their day to come down, showed up, had their face around their kids, and it made all the difference in the world. The second part to that was then having the staff, Miss P, from her site and location, right? The third part was that they were the 4s and the 5s that you see up on there, and the kids had an amazing, great time. They were able to connect with students from all over the state. One of the things that I thought was absolutely amazing was to see students from different sites in intermediate that are like, hey, I know you from Bright Futures, right? And they're making this connection of other people that they know and getting relaxed in this environment, right? And so in that regards, it was really, really cool, all right? Next slide. Okay. Sorry about that. All right, so this right here, student, Crystal, and now entrepreneur. And I'm gonna let her share that story with you. So,
Hi, my name is Crystal, and some of you probably already know me. But yeah, Mankato was a really good experience for me. It was actually my first time going to Mankato, and yeah, it was really fun. I got to see a lot of people there. I got to make some acquaintances. I got to meet like some interesting people, like you. Was happy that my mom was able to come because I was feeling really nervous. So having her support really made me feel comfortable. And yeah, as you probably already know, I have my bracelet business, which I was actually able to sell a lot of bracelets there. I felt like I had a really good time for both me and my mom, even when things were a bit of a struggle. We pushed back, and yeah, overall, I really had a good time.
I'll just add my quick experience.
Yeah.
I feel like I've said this, I have 4 children. She's my youngest. My oldest is 29. So they've all graduated. So I've been through a lot of different things. Oh, there it is. So I said I've been on a lot of different chaperone things. And this group was amazing. I said they were very well behaved. I overheard a lot of other staff from other schools say our kids were running in the hotels. They were in the pool past time. We had food being delivered at 2 a.m. And you know what? We had not one of those issues. Our kids were in their rooms. They listened. They participated. And I have to say that it was due to the staff that was there and what they have instilled in these children at school and what they did. And I just want to say that I give it up to the staff up here because they're the real heroes here today. You know, they did that. Also, for me to be able to go was amazing. She usually has a para one-on-one all the time, and that's in her IEP. And so for the district to be able to allow me to go to be her support system during that time was amazing. And it gave me an opportunity to be there for her. I'm sorry, but her confidence walking into that entrepreneurship competition was low because she forgot her computer. But she went in there and nailed it. They bought over $200 worth of product just in that room. So that showed me that she went in there, even though didn't have what she had, she was prepared. She knew what she was doing. And I'm proud of her. You know, this has been a journey and I'm thankful. So thank you.
Good.
Yes.
I really just want to add one thing about Shawnee, by the way. I added the slide.
Thank you. Yes.
We added the slide. She's way more than a month. To come along on this trip and to help us to chaperone the kids, and that's exactly what happened. When Dr. Ellen and myself had to divert to do something, she stepped up. And she was there for us and our kids, whether they were Crystal or not. And so that was impactful on the trip. I just wanted to share that.
And if there are any questions.
Is there comments from board members?
I just had a question. I'm not sure I know what the entrepreneurship thing was. Could you talk a little bit about that? Was it a competition or?
Yeah, it was a competition. I basically had to make like a product and like, you know, give a speech about why it's good, how I sell it, and like my overall plan. My plan was selling bracelets because I kind of already had a bracelet business before this.
Cool. Awesome. Thanks for sharing it.
And you said $200 worth of product in that, just in that?
Just in the room.
Awesome.
amazing.
That
That's so
wasn't
cool.
outside where students had bought bracelets when she was in the area because they gave her permission to sell it during the fun time when they were doing the social time.
Yes, super.
From the judges.
Yeah, from the
Wow.
judges. So she was given permission from them.
Nice. Nice. Yeah, Crystal.
First, as a fellow Crystal, I just want to say I love seeing another Crystal shine and thrive. So you're amazing, not just because of your name, but that's certainly one thing. Do you accept Venmo? How do you take? And I'm asking for selfish reasons because I would love to buy some.
I take Cash App and my mom has Zelle.
We're working on Venmo though.
Yeah, we're working on Venmo.
Okay.
That's
I
been
don't
a
have
very
either of
popular
those.
ask.
Okay. Come back. Let us know where we can find your bracelets.
She has business cards.
Okay, yes, can I have one?
So yeah, you can.
She does have business cards.
Yes.
That was part of suggestion by one of the judges is that she produce a business card or something to be able to hand out.
Perfect.
So she took that advice and made it.
Feel free, you have a room full of.
Yes.
Around.
The other.
Oh, and she also, I just wanted to add that she also did the art display competition piece.
Oh,
So she had various art on display that she did during her time at. And she did, I think she did like such an amazing job. My house is full of art. And her siblings have all gotten art. So it's, you know, it's amazing and we support her in everything that she does. So I'm thankful. Also, and she just another thing in the do-it-yourself room, is that what it's called? It's kind of like a recycle room, if you guys know it. She made a cat tower for our cats. So I don't have a picture of that, but I just want to say like how the school has just brought out the art in some of these children that I didn't know she had that. So, you know, we never know what our kids can do until somebody else brings it out of them.
Yeah, Michael.
Thank you.
I just had one comment really that thank you very much for this presentation and bringing this to life for us. When we talk about equity in our district, when we talk about, as we've discussed about making sure there's accessibility for everything and not having a mindset of can't do something, that there's always an opportunity for can. This is a great sort of example of the can do that 287 and our programs and our staff does. That's really impactful because that's living out what our mission is and our vision from that standpoint, and seeing it in a wonderful student and her family and the staff is great. And these are the types of things that I think are so important as we do the business of the district and in our own districts, that we actually get to see, as you just said, madam, that having people help bring that potential out is fun, and knowing that we can try and
Yeah,
that there's all sorts of where's this can take not only Crystal, but everybody.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Well said. Can we have, oh yeah.
I just want to thank the team
Mhm.
because what I don't think the board knows is going on field trips overnight.
With 17 kids. Let me point that out.
And done in District 287, but it was those, I don't think we can take our students.
Yes.
And I just thank you for the courage
Mhm.
and advocacy to break that and let our students shine. And so our leadership team, we couldn't have done it without you and saying, we're going to do it. So thank you for that.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Really well said. And again, you're welcome to stay, but you definitely don't have to. All right, next up, we have our strategic plan update from Superintendent Dowd.
You, Madam Chair. So this is the fun part, right?
We just had
Right. Yeah, that's right. We had a lot of fun tonight. This is another fun part. Our strategic plan. And one thing that, as the leaders of the groups, please come on up to the podium. So the Achieving Academic Success and Cultivating Equity and Inclusion and Promoting Social Emotional Learning. What we're going to share tonight is preliminary results of our year one goal. So this current school year. Some of the academic data won't come in till the end of the school year, but you'll get a taste of where we are, and we've accomplished almost all of the goals already. This is a hardworking team, and we could not have done it without them. And then the neat part is we started, I had Camille Hepela, our Director of Communication Department, is not able to be here tonight, but she led what we call our FOG, our Focus Area Work Groups, and we call it FOG because that's what the acronym sounds like. And so there's an academic, the focus areas are the three components of our strategic plan. And so if you are a FOG member, please raise your hand. I know some FOG members came up.
Wow.
Thank you, thank you. We're going to give you a preliminary results of this year's goals that will bridge and launch into what the FOG team is recommending for next year's goals for the strategic plan. So we will start with John, and we'll do academic success.
Thank you. Superintendent Dowd. Karen, Casey, and, members are for academic success, achieving academic success, we have the three goals in students, staff, and family caregivers. For the students, the goal was that each student would have an academic growth target and 80% of students would meet or exceed their growth targets. And with those outcomes, each student does have a goal in their IEP or their continuous learning project, continuous learning plan for the ALCs, or an enrollment plan and some of the other programs that we run. We do have a pretty wide range of how those are defined, how they're supported, and how they're measured. And so we spent a better part of the fall setting up the system to track over 2,000 of those students' goals to determine what they were and how those systems come together. We've learned that there's a lot of different ways that that happens, and finding some level of consistency was one of the biggest challenges that we confronted. And so as we look at what those are and how we measure them, we're not likely to meet the 80% target, just as we're seeing things happening now. Some students are still working on them, some don't start until the middle of the year, depending on when their IEPs are renewed. A key factor is inconsistent progress monitoring. Like I said, there's a lot of different goals, and so how those play out depends on things they're working on and how we set things up for them to do that. So the next step that we've seen on this is to provide a lot more consistency in what we do. And to support the goal setting process, so we have more consistency there on academic targets that align with standards. Then for our staff goal, we plan that during observations of scheduled planning time, 100% of classrooms and programs show evidence of implementing the collaborative planning time guide for teachers, service providers, and related service providers. We are on track to meet that. All of the programs have implemented collaborative planning guide. They've set up their teams. We shared the process element. There's the 5 things that we look for, and all those are scheduled, and the agendas are set up, and the participants are identified, including having related service providers involved in that process. And then that they are using data and setting up objectives and action steps for the classroom staff to act on. What we found in that process, again, there's a wide variety of both teams, how they're proposed, who staff are included, and the processes, kinds of data that they look at. And so when we get into next year, we want to look at improving how we're utilizing the data we have, improving our formative assessment processes, and go into providing that data, and then also do with it when we meet teams that we have professional decision-making and interventions that support students. And then for the family caregiver role, we plan to develop a comprehensive system for communicating with all of our families and caregivers on their school and academic. So we have completed school communications grid based on staff and family caregiver feedback that is available now on the public website. And we shared with parents and caregivers at the start of the move. As we looked at how all that came together, we learned that, again, we have a wide variety of ways that things are done based on our programs and our population. And so what we want to focus on more is how we target our conferences as a process to share that student progress, how we pull all of those different ways together, and bringing families in and working with them what they know about. And so that's a lot and more. But we found there's always new things to improve. Better way to
Yeah, any questions? Moving on to the next.
I guess one question I have, in terms of the goals and the communication on this last one. When you say the family caregiver feedback, how did families feel as far as the approach that we're taking with that, even though we're not able to fully give the exact feedback in terms of where we are on the goal for their particular student? But the process, the grid, all that, can you give a little bit more color to how families responded to our approach?
So as I'll take that, as we got feedback from our families regarding how often to get communication, in what forms, what do you prefer? If you come from, in their home district, they may have been able to access a system synergy or to check on grades, to check on things their students needs. When they came to District 287, we really don't have a consistent process for that. And so they felt they were missing information.
Mm-hmm.
And so we asked them, what are the best ways that we could get communication, what they're used to from their home districts, and how we can implement some of those systems for consistency here. And so a lot of our parents said, we're connected to our staff, the staff. I may see them and pick up or drop off, but there is a difference of the way that we communicate in regards to the district they left. And so one thing we wanted to do is our new families also said, how often will I be communicated with? In what forms are there? They just like, as part of the onboarding or intake meetings, they wanted to know, what does that communication structure look like? Can I call? Can I email? Can I visit? And so using their input, we developed a grid of expectations that families could expect, and we'll put it on our website. So then we have at the intake meeting, we can say, here's where you can find grades. Here's where you may have a daily email amongst your teacher, and here's where you'll see student progress. On the academic goal, what John talked about is we really need to get better at progress monitoring consistently across the district and give that information to the families and conferences. We have a lot of meetings, but like a traditional conference, we have IEP meetings, especially in our special education settings. And then they really wanted not just family nights, but conferences where they could have time with their teacher and talk about their students' progress, what's working here, and just having a little bit more open communication. So the grid was developed to say, here's what you can expect from us. Here's what staff, our parents are going to expect from you in regards to communication, laying that foundation. And so we just finished it, and it's just was launched to our staff through our internal communication with expectations of usage for next year.
Got it. Thank you very
Yes.
much.
Not a question, a comment. I just want to sort of honor the really significant progress in having each student have a goal. I know it says here, there's a really big range. I know we're not going to meet the 80% goal, but I still want to celebrate that every student in 287 has a goal that is appropriate for them. And I think that is a huge, huge milestone. And so I just wanted to really acknowledge all of the work from so many people that goes into making that happen.
And I would only reinforce that, especially for our newer board members who don't realize the significance of that. That was absent for a very long time, if not forever. And this is as we were developing the strategic plan, this is one of the key elements that was there. So the fact that in the first iteration, first year being there, this is why Crystal's comment is so significant.
Hey, perfect. Thanks, John.
Cultivating equity and inclusion.
So we had 3 goals in our cultivating equity and inclusion area. The student goal is that tier 1, tier 2, and academy students will have digital access to view all of District 287's courses and to select classes. And this was actually more difficult than it sounds. We found out that we had literally thousands of courses, multiple courses with duplicates, triplicates, quadruplicates. There was tons and tons of courses. And so we had to go through them all, create course guidelines for them, create a process for adding courses, and then to create a way for students to engage with that course list that made sense for them. And then based on the feedback that they provided to us last school year. And now that catalog and that list of courses is now available to all of our students on our public website. For our staff goal, I want to bring this up too, right? So there's a framework that comes out of the state of Maryland. It's about how do you operationalize or move forward equity mindedness in your organization. And there's 3 steps: normalize, organize, and operationalize. And so this year was really us in that normalized step, right? I want to name that for us, that this goal reflects where we are as far as like equity leadership development as an organization. And so we have the goal was that each site and program would host 2 culturally relevant educational opportunities, experiences, or performances. This goal actually is completed, which is great because May is over. And so if we were to count up all of the programs and sites, we should have had 20 events. If they all did 2, we could have had 20 events. And we actually had 38. So I just really want to give a shout out to everyone. I just counted them up. That was part of my notes. Make sure. So what that looked like is the Equity and Inclusion Department developed a culturally responsive event planning guide, and then we trained all of our equity leads. Our equity leads are staff who, in addition to their normal jobs, take on the roles of leading their equity teams within their respective sites and programs. We convene them bi-monthly, and Brent also helps them coordinate their meetings. We provide them what's called a guide to action so that they know like what sorts of events they should do. And then again, we've developed this event planning guide, so that it's not just a one and done, but it's really about how are we continuing this learning and making it really relevant and extended for our students or staff, right? Some of our events are really focused on just staff. So our next step, which we'll talk about when we get into our year 2 goals, we'll talk more about that organized. And then lastly, our goals for our family and caregivers, really stemming from the increasing in communication is around our culturally relevant interpreting and translating resources for staff to provide translated and interpreted materials to families. We got pretty decent feedback around families could access, they felt like they could access the staff that were working with their students. They felt like they could access our website. What we found is that with our families that speak other languages or require or that not necessarily spoken language, but also like sign language, right? Like there was limitations to their ability, to their accessibility. In urgency, staff would default to using things like Google Translate, which would then create nonsensical translations for families. And so we vetted multiple companies and organizations, and now we have culturally responsive, culturally relevant interpreting and translating services and standards of usage. So our staff know for what things are we legally required to provide things in other languages, and also what's best practice, right? It may not be a legal requirement, but what are best practices? So we have our standards of usage and the contracted services that we have on our communications page. We've communicated this through our SMORE, and then we've also visited the sort of like work groups of staff that would contact families very regularly. So like our counselors, for example, we visited the counselors meeting, and we can get things, we can bring interpreters to family nights. Of course you can, but just sharing that information. Same thing with social workers. And again, this is that normalizing, right? Normalizing having families a part of the conversation and making sure that they're able to access the information. We've seen an increase of our translation and interpretation by nearly 200%. It's been really phenomenal, I think, but also a little scary for the budget on the budget end. But we've seen an increase because of because staff are really accessing that standards of usage, and they're being more intentional about how they're making information available to our families. With that, I will pass it on to my colleagues for promoting social emotional learning. Oh, yeah.
You want it? Yeah.
You got it.
Sarah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. In Wayzata this year, we implemented Parent Square to best communicate with our families, students, from that staff perspective. So, to really have that perspective and now see what 287 is doing from the parent and family communication, was very valuable. And that translation tool too, really getting that right. And I'm so glad that you guys have nailed that, because there are so many languages taught just in Wayzata Public Schools. And so to really have that accessibility for our students, for our parents, for our families, just really means a lot. So thank you so much to you and your team for all your effort. Thank you.
All right, good evening, Superintendent Dowd, Board Chair Casey, and members of the board. My name is Laura McLuhan. I'm the Director of Student Supports. I had the opportunity to, along with my department, kind of head up the work around social emotional learning in collaboration with other departments, specifically human resources when it comes to the staff goal. But I'll start just by talking a little bit about the student goal in relationship to promoting social emotional learning. This year, our goal was focused on a specific subset of our population. So our students were in Tier 2 elementary, middle, and then academy programs that coincided with the rollout of a new universal SEL curriculum. So these programs were identified for an initial first year rollout. We do plan to expand and have that SEL curriculum available to all of our students and all of our programs at the beginning of next school year. So kind of simultaneously with this goal, we've been going through a curriculum and review cycle for our tier 3 programs and all the additional programs that weren't covered in this first year. So our goal was that 80% of students in those programs would develop their own SEL goal, confer with staff, and self-monitor their own progress. And so this goal was actually kind of a lot of fun to work with teachers and students around. We know a lot of this is just really organically happening in all of our classrooms, right? Our students have goals, whether it's coming to school, whether it's earning credits, whether it's right, like learning how to make a friend. There's so many different ways that social emotional learning is embedded throughout all that our teachers are doing every day. We ran into very similar issues that John outlined with the student academic goal, and that there are lots and lots of different ways to monitor and measure this. And so we went through a very similar process where we spent a lot of the fall kind of getting those systems in place. And keep in mind, we were also rolling out a new universal curriculum, right? So we were having new expectations around what that looks like to have really explicit SEL instruction in a more intentional way than we've had in the past. So we had a lot of success actually with this goal. The goal has been met, I'm excited to say. We actually have surpassed it with the percentage in average across all of our programs. And one of the fun pieces was getting student feedback, and there will be some quotes included in the report to the board, but students had a lot to say about what it was like to really be setting their own goal versus having that goal set for them. I think especially with our older students who've maybe had an IEP for a really long time, it challenges us to think about how we can really incorporate student voice into the work that we do. And so this was a really great opportunity to delve a little bit deeper into that. Our next step with this goal, like I mentioned, is to continue to expand to our other programs. So our recommendation around next year's goal, as you'll hear in a little bit, is really around how are we kind of extending this, elevating this for all of our students to ensure that all students have that SEL focused goal and that they are making progress on that. We also are planning to, again, roll out the curriculum and all the other programs. So really looking forward to continuing to increase our students' access. Turn over to
Hey, the staff goal, a universal onboarding system for new staff will include mentoring with experienced staff in a minimum of 8 hours of understanding disabilities, mental health, trauma, and de-escalation. We developed and we have developed that. We started in October with our universal onboarding, and we've been consistently doing it twice a month up to now, and some plan for the summer. Our current onboarding consists of a 3-day onboarding that does HR stuff as well as all of the items that developed. Our next steps would be to collect data on retention for employees. We'll talk about those things.
All right, and then the last goal within promoting social and emotional learning was really for our families and caregivers. The goal was to have a minimum of 4 SEL-based opportunities provided to families and caregivers throughout the school year. This goal has also been met. We were able to host a number of activities. One of the things that we did really find is that when we hosted district-wide events at one of our sites, and we had varied locations, right? South side, north side of the cities. We held one virtually, but really when families came to them, they wanted to see their student's teacher, their student staff. And so our hope in the future is that we can really better embed SEL content into existing family nights and conferences. And so we've been in close communication already with site-based admin teams really starting to plan for that for next school year. So we had a lot of success this year. We were able to partner with Dr. Abdi from the Somali American Parent Association, who's also a professor at the University of Minnesota. So we held one event that was really focused just for our immigrant families and had a really wonderful turnout and a great opportunity to engage families. Our most recent event was held virtually, and it was focused on the social emotional learning strategies for students who use augmentative communication devices. And so that was a recorded training that we're going to be sharing out with all of our families. So it's been really fun to really make sure that we're engaging with families around this topic, doing teaching for them, and then also getting feedback. I know Kiara talked a lot about ways that we're engaging families and really asking, what do you want to learn more about? And so that's something that we will plan to continue to incorporate. This for you.
Questions?
So are you seeing any like patterns or trends or clusters in the types of SEL goals students are setting for themselves?
Yeah, that's a really great question. I think one of the examples I gave, what we see with our older students, so secondary students, it's a lot around credit attainment, graduation, right? Different jobs that they want to get, which is nice because it's really in line with the measurable post-secondary goals that we need to be writing in IEPs anyways with transition services. For the younger students, depending on their developmental level, it's been a lot more around you know, keeping my hands to myself, raising my hand to ask a question, not blurting out, things like that. That would just be kind of regular day-to-day things that also are really aligned with the competencies that we're teaching from the SEL curriculum. So really starting with that self-awareness, moving into self-management, social awareness, relationship skills, and responsible decision-making.
Thanks.
I had a question, it'd actually be for you, Kevin. But the goal of the onboarding, and so sort of the one part that catches my eye always is the mentoring with the experienced staff. I'm curious how that played out. That granted that this was successful, we had the onboarding and the hiring, whatever it is, but the ongoing mentoring with experienced staff. Well, how did that impact both the person that we were onboarding, but also what was the experienced staff's takeaway from that?
Yeah, so that's actually what our goal is for the next.
Okay, fair enough. Thank you.
Good transition though.
I did not read ahead.
You mentioned there being a universal curriculum. I was curious if you could kind of comment on it as much as you can, kind of what that looks like.
Yeah, absolutely. So last school year, there was a team that went through that curriculum review and selection process. We also had opportunities for staff, students, and caregivers to give input. So this school year for our Tier 2 elementary programs, it was a program called Harmony SEL that we plan to continue it going into next year. For Tier 2 middle schools, it's a curriculum called We Do It for the Culture. And then for our academy programs, the curriculum is called Safe Circles. And then all of the curriculum that was selected for this year, and then also those that were selected going into next year, are all part of Castle's Select program, which is a collaborative for academic and social emotional learning, which is kind of the national standard for social emotional learning.
Thank you.
All right.
You have some
To
things
s-
to add.
Yeah, to say that I am beyond proud of this team. When we shared our goals and we had 9 of them, the board was like, are you sure you can do it? They did it. And they did it as rock stars. So I just have to compliment the team and the hard work and the heavy lifting that occurred all year to get our systems in place so that we can make sure our students have viable curriculum and instruction around SEL, that they have a voice in measuring their progress and have ownership in it. So that's very exciting for me. So they kind of gave you a little tickler when they said, what's next? It really was. We walked through the data, the information with the FOG members, and then we said, now what's next? And so as we look into the 25-26 annual goals, this is what the FOG team came up with. We always ground ourselves in our mission at every meeting, which we do too at the board meeting. And the other thing we really talked about is in order to accomplish the strategic plan, how do we need to be with each other, be in space with each other, hold ourselves accountable and hold each other accountable, because the goals won't happen if we don't have that agreement and collaboration. So all year we've been in our leadership meetings coming back to this. We've worked really hard on trust this year about reliable and that our actions align with our district values. That means we don't have low setting goals for our students. That's not what our values are. So that's been a lot of the work we've done this year. What you're going to see, the way that we showed last year's goals, we put them in the focus areas with achievement, and we did student, staff, and families. It's going to be a little bit different this year. This year, we're just going to focus on the students. But first, this is the FOG group. And so we have FOG members here. Thank you. I didn't prep any FOG members.
Thank you.
But would anybody like to say something about the experience of being in the FOG groups? And I didn't prep them, so it's okay to say no to me too.
Hello, my name is Etta, and I'm at the Education Center. The interesting thing about this, diversity play a lot in it. What do I mean by that? We all had different strategies. We all had different ideas that we brought, but the goal was to come with the one that aligned with the district, the one that aligned to help our children. I always say children, but our students, there with me, And so we put it this way, we put it that way, and then, but we came on, we were to work together as a group, as a team, and came on with one of our best for our students and the district. I want to say thank you to all the members, all of us not here, but that was a great work that is done. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. The whole thing that I've always shared is it's not Marcy's goals. And so this is the team, and there's a few missing. There's around 60 that developed the goals collaboratively and came up with the plan for next year. So with the student themes, we always said when we finish this 5-year strategic plan, students will have met their academic goals, students will have equitable access, and students will thrive emotionally and socially. That's the end game. So for the students' goals this year, I'm just going to bring them all up. Under achieving academic success, you heard the focus on progress monitoring. So students aren't going to meet their academic goal if we're not monitoring progress consistently and adjusting instruction. And so this year, we have a huge focus on progress monitoring, weekly formative assessments. And so the district will provide, what does that look like? What does that feel like in each of the programs? And we also invested in Synergy, which is our student-based system, a place where staff can easily put the goal in and do the documentation and have technology support them in that process. We're used to Synergy. That's what our students are in. Synergy is universal. So that is the goal that we have is the hyper focus to continue that 80% with a hyper focus on progress monitoring. The CI student goal is we had to separate a little bit because we're talking about our 4 special education sites, and then our care and treatment, C&T means care and treatment, itinerant team, and NSO is a Northern Star Online. Because of the structure of it being differently, we want to make sure everybody sees themselves in our goals and that the goal is attainable based on their structure. And so each educational center, which is our 4 centers and career and tech education, CTC, that they'll have a student leadership group that is representative of their student body. And that student body, we want to continue to elevate student voice about all the goals we did this year don't go away. They're not like done. No, we're continuing and building. And so what's working with the cultural relevant events, what's working with the SEL curriculum so that they have a voice in it, and that the district programs also have an opportunity where students can provide voice on curriculum, activities, and events. For the SEL goal for students, same kind of thing. We have the curriculum we're going to be implementing, and that all of our programs have a viable curriculum that students will use. They'll set goals. We'll look at the same way. How are we progress monitoring? So what they're doing academically, they're also going to do with social emotional. So it'll be the same kind of format for our staff. Questions on the student goals for next school year?
So just maybe kind of an operational question. The goals, like, for example, the culturally relevant events, like, how are you going to keep track of that too?
Oh,
you know what I mean? Since
yes.
they're not called out here anymore.
Yep.
Yeah.
So we've talked about, we have actually I have to honor Camille Hebla, the Director of Communications, has developed a grid on how we will continue to collect evidence and who is responsible for that. And so we still meet as a project managers team to monitor the progress of the goals, and that data will be coming there too. We could also bring it to the board too in a final report if that's.
No,
Yeah,
I was,
but
I
yeah.
was just curious because
Yeah.
it's really easy to, it's like squirrel, we're going to the
Right.
next thing, you know?
We had many conversations about that, right? Yeah. Please come on up, Kiara.
So we talked before about the guide to action, which is the framework that our equity teams use to determine the work they'll be doing year after year. So they use that to develop, to plan for the goals, so like, to plan for the events. So like what sort of culturally relevant event should we have, right?
Yeah.
And you'll see in the report that there were things from dance troops that came to do performances, students to staff going to Indigenous lab, to all sorts of things. And so we track all of those things. One, because of a grant, the Closing Educational Opportunities grant that we have, and we need to report those things to the state. But also that is a large part of Brent's work, is supporting our equity teams and maintaining that connection to the sites. How are we providing what we call life essential and life enriching opportunities to students, staff, and families? And so we monitor and track all of those, specifically the culturally relevant events through his work.
Thanks.
Yeah, but it has been in all of the goals, like, it's not one and done.
Yeah.
Right? This is now how we do business. So how do we incorporate it into the system? Okay. Let's go to staff, and at the end, we talked about staff demonstrating knowledge on culturally responsive instruction, culture that celebrates diversity and advances inclusion, and that it's a positive, safe, and healing environment for our students. So for the staff goals, for our achieving academic success, through monthly collaborative team meetings, all staff will show evidence of using disaggregated student school data and doing targeted interventions. So the first year goal was about the teams using the planning guide. This now is really the next step, is how are you using data within those teams, monitoring progress and developing intervention plans. And so it's an extension of year one. And for the CI goal, all full-time staff will engage in at least 8 activities to reflect on their social identities and how that influences the work with students and colleagues. A lot of conversation with our FOG members was self-work. What do we, like, the mirrors and the windows, and talking about what's our social identity, how does that reflect then, and what biases come out when we're teaching students that are not like us. And so that'll be a large work on our teams and our sites with support from our equity team. Our SEL goal goes back to the human resources around retention rates for staff within their first year. So we built that onboarding. What we do know is that the staff that we lose the most are within their first year. And so why we built the onboarding is that data told us, and the staff exit interviews shared, I need more training. And so therefore, we have now a goal to continue that onboarding and collect data around it to adjust and monitor. Questions on the staff goals?
So increase by 10%. What is it? What is that retention rate today?
I'm gonna have to look at my colleagues.
Okay.
I can get it for you and put it in there. Do you have it, Kira? Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
Our program analyst bias. It was at 82% district wide, but in the first year it drops down to 69.
Thank you. Team. All right, families and caregivers. So at the end, families and caregivers are empowered. We heard they want to feel welcome, heard, and valued, and they want to be a partner in their child's education. So these annual goals are helping us get there. One thing you'll see, though, is that there's only 2, because we combine the achieving academic success and the SEL. This goal may not seem like you might question this goal in the sense of to increase family caregiver knowledge of their students' progress. And on how they're doing in District 287. This isn't a consistent practice across all programs. And conferences, in full transparency, look different in all of our spaces. So we're trying to bring some one flexibility that will meet our families' needs, but yet our families keep saying, how is my student doing? Like, are they ready to go back to their home district? Like, how do I know? What does the data say? And being more data rich in the district to enter into conversations about progress is really critical for our families. It's what they've asked for us to do. And so we are developing structures to support during conferences that they get progress monitoring data from the system I told you, Synergy. They'll get reports at conferences, not only on their academic data, but also that's where the social emotional goal will be too. And so that will lead the conversations at conferences, and they won't have just verbal information, they'll have written information too. For our CIS goal, each educational center and district program, very much like a goal you just saw, but we'll establish a family caregiver group. So just like we're having that student group, we also want to activate a family group to engage and give us feedback. You all passed the curriculum and instruction policy. It requires family feedback. We need to develop a system where we can engage families on where District 287 is going in their curriculum and future planning. So, and what we've learned is that it's really important it's at the site. Like the more we pull district-wide, just because we're so large, that the families come to family nights. They come first to see how their students are doing. And so how are we incorporating it, meeting the district, meeting the families where they, which is in our buildings and in our programs. Those are the goals for the questions.
I just had a question on the first one. Ironically, we're talking about measuring student performance, but how do we measure the family caregiver knowledge in order to reach our goal of increasing it?
Yes, so we have some preliminary information from our families about what it'll be what do I want to say? Quantitative.
Quantitative.
Qualitative. That's what I was just processing in my head. We have some, and so we will get through probably a survey or just sitting and having conversations, information about the change of conferences and what they're getting at conferences. Do they feel more informed? IEP meetings, where are they at? So it will be a mix between probably a survey, individual meetings, calls, whatever, and then bringing that data together, quantitative and qualitative data together.
Thank you.
Rich and then.
Yeah, just, this is not as a board member, this is as a parent. Your family goals and stuff, I applaud you for trying. You know, special ed families, they're not only helping with this and their kids' education, but they're also running around with speech therapists and this, that, and that family and trying to get their kids into social groups. And just to try this, I applaud you. It's difficult for these families to even have the time or the knowledge to know what it is. And so my encouragement would be like with IEPs. I don't know if you've all been through an IEP. I've been through about 20. They can be hell and be very successful. But yeah, just encouraging the staff to know that the family is coming with a struggle, hardship and and everything is elevated. So I just applaud even attempting to have family involvement. I think it's very hard. I do think the idea of having it at each site is probably the best way. As a parent with Ann Bremer, I would have never gone to a district event. Don't have time. But if Ann Bremer says, Rich, come over and learn what your son is, yeah, I'll be there.
And
So,
that-
yeah,
And that's the shift we're doing.
Yeah.
Right, that's exactly the shift we're doing, is going to the site
mhm,
where our families feel the most connected and safe. And we also have entered into some really courageous conversations about what does engagement look like.
mhm.
And, you know, it may not be physically attending conferences.
Right.
But however our families show up, our job is to make sure our families get the information. And so trying to break that, if Marcy doesn't show up, she doesn't get a printout of her child's progress. Because they didn't come to conferences and say, no, you're gonna get that no matter what. So, it is a little, it's something we're wrestling with family engagement, but I do feel like the thing I wrestle with here is a parent a parent and a caregiver would have got that if in your home district. Why would they lose that here by just coming here? And so, some of these systems, it's important that we bring them back. And when a family's ready to look at it, maybe it's not at the phone call, maybe it's not at the conferences, but they have something when they're ready to look at it. And I think that's
Yeah.
our first step.
I have something that is so superficial in comparison to the conversation that was just had. I wanted to say I really admire and am inspired by the goals for next year. So that is just like absolutely the most important thing. And that's the headline. The super minor thing is I don't love the acronyms. AAS, PSEL, and CEI being used because I just think like that is a barrier to accessibility and understanding what we're talking about.
We'll adjust that.
Thank you for saying that. I agree.
Yeah, but I just learned what they meant. and
I'm
now we're
sorry.
back.
We're not changing them. I
Okay.
just think spell them out.
Okay, I'm with you.
Yeah.
And underline the
Write
letter
it
for
out.
me.
I
so
agree.
Thank you.
I agree.
Thank you.
I was
No
like,
acronyms.
AAS means something different to me. Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, Dan, you had a question.
Right. Just then to really ask, for the circumstances where it might be hard to contact a family, to, give them a report. You touched on it a little bit already that, okay, if they don't show up at conferences, they still get a progress report. But just those times where it's, challenging to engage with the family, we know people are really busy. Just kind of how you will respond to, troubles with engagement with caregivers, with families.
Yeah, I'm processing the words troubles with engagement. And I say that because I don't feel like any one of the staff members would say they have trouble. Some days, people are a little bit more accessible than others. And I think what is amazing about the leaders in the programs and in the buildings and the staff is they connect with families more than I, as a superintendent. Our families love, you hear it every time they do a report. Our families love our staff. And so our staff are, I would say, very connected to our families. And so we talk about honoring anybody that comes on in as a family member, a caregiver, and however you show up, when you want to show up, that's engagement.
I can reinforce that, by the way.
Yeah.
Oh, Ann Bremer.
Yeah.
I mean, they communicated very well and they understood that each family has their own challenges and issues, but they communicated. Yeah. And when you walked into the building, you're part of the team.
Yeah.
So they get it. Yeah.
Amazing team. Yes.
So I just have a general comment. As I've seen the strategic plan and the goals kind of progress and evolve over these last couple of years, the thing that I think about is that writ large, it's celebrating differences, not exacerbating them. You know, I mean, from the standpoint of, all the work around, cultural proficiency and inclusion, really celebrating those differences, but also the work around, we can find a way to measure success objectively. And, and tonight we can take kids on an overnight trip and be successful. We can do that instead of, well, so kudos.
I'm gonna say, maybe you already, go ahead, please do it.
Like, you have done a great job of appreciating the members of your team, but I also remember, like, there are districts who spend tens, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars on strategic planning processes. And you said we don't need to do that because we have the talent here to do it. And so I just want to appreciate that decision and the leadership that is required to do that and to get to where we are today.
Yeah.
Yay.
So true. I wasn't gonna say that, but that needed to be said, so thank you. I mean, I could not agree more. The thing that has sat with me since the very first time I saw this plan was just how it seems, it's neat and it's audacious. But the neatness empowers the audaciousness of it, and to be able to go academic success, students, staff, families, equity, inclusion, students, staff, families. It's really, I think it's really powerful. So I'm glad we didn't spend that money because this is better. And I think maybe this kind of speaks to the question over here about measurement, but also to what you guys were talking about. Just that, I mean, when you look at these, it's not like we can't force goals on family members, right? We can't force goals on students. Like, all of these goals are adults' work in the system, right? Our staff's work. So it's kind of about how do we measure what we are doing, and then how do we measure the response to that? But we're not asking our families to meet the goals, right? And I think that that is really key, because I think sometimes we do write goals oh, well, families will do this. Well, we can't force that. But this allows us to take responsibility in each of these different areas. And I'm 60 people.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's such a,
Double from last year.
yeah. Yeah. That's powerful, because it doesn't just come from, it's not just Marcy's plan. It's not just, anybody's plan. It's not the board's plan. Yeah, Rich.
Yeah, just a question on supporting the staff by implementing this. I mean, folks, two of our goals are a political hotbed. I mean, culturally equity and inclusion. Hello, you just put a target on us. And then now, I guess social emotional learning is the next one.
It is.
And so how are we getting prepared to help our staff understand the importance of this? And yet they're going to be the ones that are going to hear the flack from the conspiracy crowd.
Yeah.
I mean, and so how are you approaching that? Because politically, there are probably people who grumble about achieving academic success too. I don't know. Two of our goals are political hot potatoes right now.
Yeah.
And yet they're essential to what we do. So how is our staff being prepared for that?
Yeah, our job as leaders is to protect our staff so they can do the work. And I ask you as a board, because we've talked about it as a leadership team about cultivating equity and inclusion. And if we were ever asked to have to take equity out of our strategic plan. And I guess I need from the board, because this leadership team does not want to take it out, does not want to stop the work. And as I shared I went around to each of the buildings and programs and talked about kind of some political things going on. And I guess I said, if I lose my job because I did what was right, I guess that would be okay. And so I asked the board to support me in this, because our staff know. Our staff, so that's not the issue. We need to keep the noise quiet so they can actually do the work. And so whatever we can do as leaders in our voice and lobbying, not backing down and supporting each other through it. That's, I guess, what I ask,
But my hope would be that you would use us to help you do that,
always.
because that's our job. Let our staff do that work
Yeah.
along with the families, and let us deal with the,
Thank you for saying
Other.
it, though.
yeah.
That
We have an
commitment's huge.
opportunity right now because this is an action item.
This is an
We
action
are
item.
asked to approve this strategic plan, the goals for the next school year right now. So, with all
Nice
this in
job.
mind, is there, I guess I'll call for the motion and then we can discuss if anybody needs. So is there a motion to approve the 25-26 strategic plan goals as presented?
So moved.
Moved by, I heard Shannon, and then I heard second by, Rich. I heard you first.
Okay.
And then is there any further discussion?
The only added comment I would make to what you just said is that those are principles. Those aren't political slogans, no matter how people use them. These are principles. And the principles are actually based on the work of 287. These words come from the work that 287 has been championing for many decades. Is still the beacon of light for that, not just in our community, but anywhere if anyone actually wanted to pay attention to it. And God help somebody who thinks that somehow trying to change a principle of that is going to somehow fly. We all certainly stand for elections and so on and so forth, and maybe in some of your communities that might be challenging or whatever it is. But the work that's being done here, and we've had this conversation with Kiara and her team as she's done things. I've asked that exact same question, what's going on and what do we need to do to kind of help support that? Sticking to the principle is job one. And the only thing I'd add to, and maybe we get this in the next part of the agenda, but it's also about leadership. And the leadership not only that we represent, but most importantly, the leadership that Marcy represents, that then she is able to engender in the culture of this organization, allows us to live by those principles. So I think if we need to remind ourselves every time, just like we read our mission every time we have a meeting, if we need to remind ourselves of those words and those principles, so be it.
Right. Well, with that, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Chair votes aye. The strategic plan goals are approved. I think we've got your back.
Thank you, team.
Thank
All
you,
right.
team.
Now we're gonna go just back to this year
Yes, go back to
for a
this
little
year.
bit and
Yep.
talk about your goal.
So each year, the superintendent has a goal, and I had a goal based on my evaluation. The prior year, they asked, "What is Marcy doing well, and what are some things you'd like to continue to focus on?" And the board overwhelmingly said, "Keep doing that strategic plan. Keep doing that strategic plan." So that is my goal, and it really was tonight is to complete this year's goals, as well as present to you the 25-26 school year goals. So the presentation is evidence of completion of the goal. In regards to this year, you got preliminary information regarding this year's goals. Once the student data comes in, which will be June, we don't have a board meeting in July, so you'll get the final report in August for the strategic plan for 24-25. Just want to lay that timeline out for you.
All right. Any comments or questions about that? Okay. Then next up, we have no instructional report. We have under business services and labor relations, our human resources report. We have 3 resolutions that Kevin is gonna tee up for us.
One on the table.
This one.
Just bring it closer.
I'm here, members of the board, I'm here tonight with seeking several resolutions and a request for board action regarding the release of staff. Many of you have probably already done this in your home districts, and District 287 is no different. So every year, the district has to release some licensed and non-licensed staff based on other factors. Tonight, the first resolution I have is relating to the termination, non-renewal of probationary teaching contracts. 24-25 school year.
All right, and it has been our practice in 287 and probably in lots of our other districts to waive the reading of the resolution so that we're not saying names out loud. And so I would entertain a motion to waive the reading of the resolution and approve the resolution of the probationary licensed teacher non-renewals. So moved by Crystal. Is there a second? Second by Michael. Any further discussion? Okay, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The chair votes aye and the resolution is passed.
The second resolution I have for you is related to the termination and non-renewal of our probationary, non-licensed employees.
Point of order, Madam Chair.
Oh, go ahead.
We had a roll call.
Yeah, point of order.
That was my bad.
Curiosity,
Oh.
Madam.
Okay, I was
Okay.
wondering. as a
Yes,
whole.
thank you. You're right. I've never been a clerk. I need you clerks to tell me what to do. The one roll. Okay, so we're going back. What do we have to do? We're just rewind
Right, so the,
to the motion and the second,
right.
and then Clerk Genestra will call the roll.
Yeah, right. So
Thank you.
the motion having been waived and seconded, after a motion, I'll now go to a roll call vote
Thank you.
of, colleagues. Shannon Andreessen,
Aye.
Michael Bergman,
Aye.
Crystal Brackey,
Aye.
Ann Casey.
Aye.
Dan Genestra, yes. Caroline Long.
Yes.
Karen Orchid,
Aye.
Michael Remical,
Aye.
Brian Roth,
Aye.
Kim Ross,
Aye.
Keith Tate.
Aye.
Richard Zach,
Aye.
unanimous.
Thank you. Okay. Thanks, Kevin.
The next resolution I have is relating to the termination and non-renewal of our probationary, non-licensed employees at the end of the 2024-25 school year.
Okay, so do I hear a motion to waive the reading and approve the probationary non-licensed employee non-renewals? So moved. Second, Karen, and seconded by Kim. Any further discussion? And the clerk will call the roll.
Shannon Andreessen,
Aye.
Michael Bergman,
Aye.
Crystal Brackey,
Aye.
Ann Casey,
Aye.
Dan Genestra, yes. Caroline Long.
Yes.
Karen Orchid,
Aye.
Michael Remical.
Aye.
Brian Roth,
Aye.
Kim Ross,
Aye.
Keith Tate.
Aye.
Richard Zach.
Aye.
Ayes have
Thank you. And the last one.
And the final resolution is related to the temporary license position ending June 30th. And I do want to note that some of these positions will be rehired once their license is granted through council.
No, this is a hard thing. Nobody likes these resolutions. It's an annual thing that we do and not our favorite. Okay. Is there a motion to waive the reading and approve the temporary license tier 1, tier 2 and out of field teacher position resolution?
Aye.
So moved. Thank you, Shannon.
Second.
Seconded by Michael. Is that what I heard? Okay.
Yes,
Any-
ma'am.
Any further discussion? Okay, Daniel, call the roll.
Shannon Andreessen,
Now I say aye.
Michael Bergman,
Aye.
Crystal Brackey,
Aye.
Ann Casey,
Aye.
Dan Genestra, yes. Caroline Long. Karen Orchid,
Aye.
Michael Remical.
Aye.
Brian Roth,
Aye.
Kim Ross,
Aye.
Keith Tate,
Aye.
Richard Zach.
Aye.
Yeah, ayes have it.
Thanks, Kevin.
Thank you.
Okay, our next item is under policy review. We have the fund balance policy. Superintendent Dowd is going to present.
Sounds good. Thank you, Madam Chair. So this is the official last policy that has to be updated for District 287. 3 years, we did it. So the fund balance policy. Now, oddly enough, this is not a MSB mandated policy. Yep, so, but we all in the board asked for us to review it, and so this is one of ours that we will review. The last time this policy was updated was 2018. So as you can see, there's quite a few language changes in just the finance world. And so the purpose changed, general statement changed, some definition updates and some renumbering. The biggest one is under section 5, that we had a range in our previous fund balance policy. And the new language that is being recommended is a minimum unassigned general fund balance of 8%.
What I couldn't remember is what was the range?
was 6
prior-
to 8.
6 to 8. Okay, thank you.
But it was also worded in a confusing.
It was
way.
worded in a confusing way. Yeah.
And correct me if I'm wrong, does the language still say at the end of the year, it needs to be 8%?
So let me go back. So in
Okay.
Michael, on Roman numeral 2, general statement, that crossed out language has the old language.
Got it. Thank you.
And then, sorry,
Nice.
actually, the new language under 5 is the school district will remain at year end, a minimum unassigned fund balance of 8% of the annual general fund expenditures.
Thank
Let me clarify that language. And so I put this forward as a first read. And the goal would be to have a second read in the first meeting in June, because the finance team will be bringing the budget forward at the end of June with this policy intact. Any questions or comments?
Well, I don't know. Dan, did you get your question answered?
I did.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I just think this is a great change, just for clarity around. Yeah, I think funding, as we all know, is a big topic right now, so thank you for getting this done.
Yeah, I think the wording was confusing enough that
Yeah.
every time we done it, we were like,
You were
wait,
like,
what? So. Okay,
I'll bring
if
it back.
something comes to you, between now and our first meeting in June, or on the way home tonight, let Superintendent Dowd know. Okay, board reports. I noticed that West Tonka was featured in the AMSD Connections newsletter for May, so check that out. It's connected, it's connected to the board book. Let's see. Remember that the calendar for 25 and 26 is also connected to board book, and just a reminder that we'll have 2 meetings in June. We do not meet in July, and we have 1 meeting in August, which is the fourth Thursday, sorry. The 4th Thursday in August. So we will not have any meeting in July, and we will not meet the second week of August. So that has been our practice. My agenda. Graduations are coming up before our next meeting, so if you have not signed up for graduations, please do. Juanine, if there's a great need for. Okay, so sign up for graduations. They're super fun. There's at least, Juanine, could you resend the link? I know it was in the Friday update. So if you look for it, it's in Marcy's last Friday update. So it's good to have, and I think there's one time where there's 2 graduations happening at the same time. So especially if you can make it to one of those, that would be fantastic, because we're kind of always splitting up for those ones. I think that's an evening one, so that might be a good one for folks who aren't available during the day. That's it is that it for announcements, besides the evaluation? Yep, okay, so we're about to start our superintendent evaluation process. You will get, well, actually tonight was really the first item with Marcy presenting the results of her goal. Tomorrow in the morning, you'll get the survey. It's a Google form, and linked to that survey is like the procedure for the superintendent evaluation, as well as Marcy's, what do you call it?
I do like a summary of evidence under the components for you to look at.
Yep. So check those out. And then if you could get the survey back to, or filled out by June 6th, that will give me time to synthesize it before the meeting. And then what will happen is that I will just put all that together. And then we will talk about it. We'll talk about the synthesis in a closed session at the meeting. And then I will present a summary of that outcome at our next open meeting, as you guys probably are all used to in your home district. So,
How will we get it tomorrow?
if by email, Juanita is going to send it by
Come from
email.
Juanita.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yep.
That's, I needed to know the.
Good
order.
question. And I think she said she already has it set to send in the morning. So, you'll get it tomorrow morning. And yes, it's a pretty simple, Google form. So it's not too complicated. So I appreciate your, intentional and, what's the word I'm trying to think of? I don't know. I'm losing my mind the night here. Work on this and your timely, return of the survey so that we can get it done. Any other questions on that? Okay, with that, I will take a motion to adjourn, preferably from someone who wants to get to that Timberwolves game. Kim? No, just kidding. Oh, once we're on the table.
I actually have things to share.
Okay, so Crystal has something to
Okay.
share.
Two things. One, most important by far is so happy and proud of Richfield's Assistant Superintendent, Dr. Latanya Daniels, who is the next superintendent of Burnsville Egan Savage School District.
wow.
So cannot wait to see her as a leader of that school district. She's been an absolute force in Richfield for good for a good number of years now, first as our high school principal and then as our assistant superintendent. So just thrilled. And then I will just say I'm super sorry because I'm going to miss our next meeting, but I'm going to be in Honduras for my niece's kindergarten graduation. So I hope you all understand why I'm.
You need a chaperone. We could get some volunteers.
Yeah.
You know, they say an overnight trip for 12 board members
there you
can't
go.
be done. I think so.
Supporting education.
That's right.
Also.
And then before we adjourn, we have a closed session too. So I'm like like I said, I'm losing my mind.
All right.
So we are going to, if there's any other ones on the table items. So, take a motion to adjourn to our closed session. Is that right? Is that how we do it? We don't close the
A motion to close.
motion to
Close.
close the meeting?
Yeah.
And then,
Pursuant to.
And then we have to reopen
Okay.
and adjourn.
yeah, no,
Okay.
I know. Okay. So is there a motion to, close our open meeting and adjourn to closed session pursuant to consider strategy for labor negotiations pursuant to Minnesota statute 13D.03?
So moved.
Moved by Shannon, second by Michael. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The chair votes aye. We are moving into closed session at 8:07 and we'll take just a couple minutes to reset the room.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Madam Chair.
The only person judging you is you.
I know.
Yes, you're doing more.
And I'm actually glad I'm not chairing this meeting because
When you-
my eyes keep like going.
No, Mike.
Oh, I didn't even see the first session. I was like, yeah, radio. Unfortunately, this I think is just probably.
She said,
brief
all is-
discussion
Yeah,
about-
hopefully.
say yay. So we tease her about that forever. So, no,
Okay.